Hello my beautiful friends, welcome to this week's magical new moon in Pisces on Saturday the 13th of March. And thank you so much for being here. Big respect to Wurundjeri and Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Huge respect to their elders past, present and becoming. I'm speaking to you as always from their lands which were stolen and unceded, and I pay my big respect. New moons are seeding points. They're always the beginning of a cycle. Astrology is cycles upon cycles upon cycles. They never end, but there's always something new being introduced, and we are living in very interesting times, as we all know. The last couple of weeks have been, fairly intense, and this whole year has been quite relentless. I think most people that I know have been experiencing that feeling of this intense, non-stop, full-on, relentless responsibilities that are being demanded of us, and there's been very little time to slip into the gentle, quiet, relaxing moments that perhaps we've had at other times. Pisces is meant to offer us a little bit more of that time, and this new moon is an opportunity that we can really kind of slip into a little bit of that kind of Neptunian, watery, inward, dreamy, visionary space. So I hope that you all find some time in this weekend that you can actually do that. So as I mentioned, new moons are seeding points. They're fantastic times to plant intentions for the month ahead. And this new moon is very auspicious because at the exact moment that the sun and moon come into a conjunction, which is what a new moon is, Neptune and Venus are also meeting at 20 degrees. The sun and moon are meeting at 22 degrees and Neptune and Venus are meeting at 20 degrees, roughly. Venus is at 19 degrees at the exact moment that the moon and sun are conjoining, but very quickly she moves into 20 degrees as well. And of course, as I've mentioned in previous updates, Venus is exalted in Pisces, I beg your pardon, and Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces. So they're both very, very powerful. They're completely in their element in Pisces. Pisces is the watery sign of the full totality of what life and the universe contains. So it's very dreamy, very visionary, very non-language oriented, which is going to bring some interesting opportunities and potentially challenges over the coming month as Mercury moves into Pisces on the 16th, Tuesday the 16th. I'm also going to give a general overview of some of the mundane astrology, how it's affecting us in the world, generally in our lives. And then I'm going to go through each of the rising signs or sun signs and pull a few little cards, as well as look at how the new moon is activating your chart. So to begin with, Venus and Neptune are offering this new moon some really powerful healing and magical and visionary creative energy. Venus rules interpersonal love and relationships, friendships, creativity, art, diplomacy, fairness, and Neptune rules the higher octave of love. Transpersonal, cosmic, universal love, higher consciousness, forgiveness, compassion. And these two planets are infusing their energy into this seeding new moon. So we may experience shifts in the dynamic of relationships. There's a potential for healing, for deeper understanding, for romance, for generating an abiding sense of joy and recognition of the other, and love and beauty. So it's really very, very beautiful. Of course, Mars has moved into Gemini and it is being ruled by Mercury, which is still in the latter degrees of Aquarius. In the mundane astrology over the last week, we've been continuing to see this news emerge, particularly in Australia, but also overseas, relating to women. Venus rules women and Gemini rules news and information and data, and Mars is the planet of action, of taking action in a forthright and aggressive manner. It's acting on desire, it's acting on its highest expression. Mars is the warrior who fights for those who don't have the power or the ability to fight for themselves. So we've been seeing, you know, a continuing evolution of the news cycle in relation to abuses of power, particularly relating to women. And that is going to continue over the coming week. This new moon offers us the opportunity to see things at a high level and at a spiritual level. Pisces is a very spiritual sign, and it sits on the axis, the Pisces-Virgo axis. And Virgo is very much related to healing at the physical embodied level, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So it's very information oriented, very looking at the facts. How do things impact our health and our work life and our day-to-day life? Pisces is very non-language. When Mercury moves into Pisces next week, it will be very interesting to see how this plays out. It may be harder to articulate what we mean, but we may be more inclined to go inward and to feel into the truth of things. Pisces is a highly spiritual sign, and it is also related to healing, but it's that kind of amorphous cosmic flow of energies that allow us to align with a bigger source of being, how we fit into the bigger picture. Everything is contained in Pisces. It's the last sign of the zodiac, so it's like where everything is integrated. All the fragments can be unified while still remaining separate and independent. It's a watery sign, so it's very emotional, it's very spiritual. It is less data and rational and language oriented, but it's highly poetic. So there's a very powerful potential for creative expression, especially with Venus and Neptune in Pisces at this time as well. At the time of this new moon, Chiron still in Aries at 7 degrees, making a sextile to Mars in Gemini. So there is this ongoing potential for healing to be occurring through communication, through communicating the truth of the facts and the ideas that need to be expressed in a powerful way. We also have still, of course, Saturn squaring Uranus in Taurus, and so we're still seeing this dynamic being played out in the world around us between the forces that want to move forward towards a progressive future that allows everybody to have what they need to live in abundance, to not be stifled and deprived of their rights, of their resources, of their ability to live a good and rich life. Saturn is still in Aquarius, and he is forward looking still, of course. However, we are seeing this manifest, the vestiges of the Capricornian influence of Saturn with the powers that be wanting to hold on to the status quo. We're seeing it with our Prime Minister, with our Attorney General, with a number of other federal ministers who are not wanting to face the facts. The north node of the moon, the collective north node, which represents our destiny, the direction in which we are needing to move forward more consciously in Gemini, and that is again relating to facts, to data, to information. The south node is in Sagittarius, and it reflects the shadow side of Sagittarian values, which is kind of righteous, opinionated fixation on beliefs that we hold that we are right. This is where we're going to get caught up in the challenges of the kind of karmic dynamic. So we want to be looking always at the two sides of the story. Gemini rules doubles. So we are needing to look at this part of the story, and then what's the other side of the story, and what are the facts saying? What does the data show about this scenario, whatever the scenario might be? And wherever we feel righteously fixated on a point of view, that's a sign that we need to step back for a second and bring a little bit of that Gemini perspective. Like, what's really going on here? What is all the information? What am I missing? What have I not looked at yet? This is all infused within this new moon as well. We have Saturn trining that north node, so there is a need to be disciplined about that now, or we would be, another way of putting it is that we'll be rewarded with an easy flow of energies and positive benefits if we're able to apply a disciplined kind of thinking to that, looking at different perspectives. We also have Pluto still in Capricorn at 26 degrees, sextiling this new moon. It's off by a few degrees, but it's still a by-sign sextile, which, as I've mentioned previously, is a very productive and beautiful aspect, which allows us to generate something new quite easily. Pluto is the planet of power and destruction and regeneration. The riches that can be found when old structures that are done with, that no longer serve us, are pulled down to reveal what is most important at their source, at their foundations. And it is sextiling this new moon. So at a personal level, we might want to think about what parts of our lives feel really outdated right now, what structures are feeling constraining, where our power is not expressed, and what needs to change there. What seeds can we plant in this new moon that will allow us to build something that is much more empowering for us personally and collectively. We've had Jupiter still very close to Mercury all week, and this dynamic will probably continue into next week. We're going to see a very interesting unfolding of the news in relation to some of these revelations that have been emerging. The story in the royal family with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle revealing the true reasons why they left the royal family, is also very much connected to that Jupiterian explosion of information, of expressing a point of view, and one that is setting the record straight and that is kind of more closely aligned to issues of justice. That story is not only pertinent to those individuals, but to many, many individuals. It has highlighted once again issues of racism that are rotten at the core of our societies. We still have Saturn sextiling Chiron, so applying this sense of discipline and maturity to heal the parts of ourselves, because Chiron is in Aries, which is the sign of the self, so it is healing the parts of our own lives and our own psyches and psychology that needs to be shifted in order for us to gain power that will allow a greater sense of progress and healing to occur for all of us. We also have Chiron sextiling Mars. So again, following the desires that we have that are true desires, acting on our ambitions, acting on the forces that motivate us to take action, will also have a very strong healing over this new moon and throughout next week. And these healing influences with Chiron are going to intensify over the week because that aspect is going to become more exact as the week develops. On Sunday and Monday, we have the south node of the moon in Sagittarius starting to make a trine with both the moon and with Chiron. So there is the potential for this kind of emotional upwelling or upswelling that allows us to get closer to what's really important to us at an emotional level that requires healing and that requires attention. And that relates to what we believe about a situation and how that might need to be adjusted. The south node of the moon is also a really spiritual part of that dynamic, the karmic nodes of the moon, because in ancient Vedic mythology, the south node of the moon was the part of the dragon that was cut away. The north node of the moon, which we in the West associate with our destiny, the path that we are wanting to more consciously align ourselves to, was the head of the dragon who stepped in line out of turn to receive the elixir of immortality. And when Vishnu, I think it was Vishnu, found out that the dragon had stepped in out of place, he chopped off the dragon's head. So the north node is actually the voracious part of ourselves that drives us forward to grow and mature and evolve through desire. But it can be overzealous as well. Whereas the south node of the moon is the part that was chopped away and is spiritually transmuted. It cannot gain immortality, so it must evolve in this lifetime. So that south node of the moon trining Chiron gives us an opportunity, especially with the incredibly beautiful energies of Venus and Neptune, which are so healing in and of themselves, infusing that new moon energy, which is following us, really energetically all month, establishing the kind of status quo for the month. It is allowing us to really do that spiritual work And that can be done very beautifully and powerfully by catching those any righteous kind of ideas and beliefs we have in dynamics of relationship through creative processes, through poetry, music, anything that relates to beauty or relationship will be very powerfully activated this week and over the course of this month, and especially this weekend. On the 16th of March, we have Mercury stepping into 0 degrees of Pisces. We have Mars trining Saturn, which is a very interesting dynamic because those two have been squaring and, you know, having a tense relationship for quite some time, and now they're working in quite a harmonious way together as Mercury steps into Pisces, this very dreamy, liquid, oceanic, languageless space that is very much associated with spirituality and healing. Mars is in Gemini, wanting to take action and communication, but not being able to articulate in that same rational fashion that it had the capacity to do in Aquarius. So developing some kind of practice that is meditative in some way, because Neptune rules meditation. And of course, meditation can take many forms. It can be drawing, it can be walking in nature, it can be listening to music, it can be listening to the sounds outside. But anything that helps to center us in being present with what is will help us to access the ideas that can be made manifest through the actions of Mars. You know, Mars in Gemini is a very fast-moving, active influence, but ruled by Mercury in Pisces, it is a little bit amorphous and it is very spiritually fueled. So there could be this kind of a little bit of disconnect between the need and the desire to take action and to move fast and forward and get things going, with this Piscean fluidity that's kind of taking us out of our bodies a little bit and into space. So meditation can be a great way of grounding into that sort of karmic liquidity and into the space where ideas surface from a deeper part of ourselves, not just from our mental capacity. On Tuesday, when Mercury moves into Pisces, Pluto is also making a sextile to the Sun. So there's this conscious awareness that something needs to be transformed, that some aspect of power needs to be renewed through a destruction and a revelation. What needs to be changed structurally? What in our lives needs to be undone and rebuilt? And our conscious awareness is going to be very strongly focused on what that is at around about that time. We also have Pluto making a square to the Moon, who by that stage will be in Aries. And the Moon in Aries can be a little bit tricky because Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is in Gemini, so it is very communicative, but it can sometimes provoke a reaction to be able to, in an attempt to release the energy of frustration that it might be feeling. So on this day, we do want to be a little bit careful about our communication and being mindful of the ways in which we might be provoking or prodding and aggressively trying to express energy that is feeling frustrated or confused and unclear, unable to articulate itself. And that's the thing, because Mercury is in Pisces and Mars is being ruled by that mercurial inability to articulate in such a rational fashion what's going on. And in that inability to express itself, there's the potential to kind of react in communication. So we want to be mindful of that. All week long, we still have Venus trailing the Sun, and of course she is exalted in Pisces and she is so close to the Sun. That's a condition that's known as combustion, and when planets combust the Sun, usually they experience some kind of detrimental extinguishment of their light, because literally they're invisible in the sky when they are so close to the Sun, because the Sun is so blinding. However, when a planet is exalted in a sign next to the Sun, it's as if the planet is riding in the chariot of the Sun, and Venus is literally like the attendant of the Sun all the time at the moment. All last week, all this week, she is being given prominence by the sun. The sun is illuminating the concerns of Venus. So we're going to continue to see these allegations of sexual misconduct come to light. But there's going to be something else. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out this week because Mercury is in Pisces. So there's a potential for healing, but there's also the possibility of some kind of confusing obfuscation or the facts not being seen so clearly. Also, as the week continues, the sextile aspect between Pluto and Sun becomes more exact as we move forward. So this kind of very strong compulsion within us, almost as an obsessive concern to see what's really going on at the foundations, what is rotten at the core, at the bottom of a situation, is going to continue to be illuminated, and the pressure, we will feel the pressure to change and transform, or we may experience situations that throw that kind of transformation and that need for leveling a situation in order to rebuild it will continue over the course of the week. And as we move towards next weekend, you know, this weekend is this very powerful new moon in Pisces, which is seeding a possibility for real spiritual growth and potentially healing in relationships. And next weekend we have the equinox, which is the movement of the sun into Aries. The equinoxes are when the day and night are at equal lengths, and they kind of tip us into the next phase of the year, when darkness prevails or lightness prevails. And so they've always been very, very powerful and important moments in the Earth astrological calendar, when ceremonies can be conducted and when we recognize the shifting point in cycles of our lives on Earth. So the astrology around next week's equinox is also immensely powerful and has very strong healing signatures that deal with addressing some of the toxic issues. And, you know, toxic masculine issues are being given prominence at the moment. The equinox is also like the Earth's birthday. And so it is another kind of beginning. So we have these 2 weeks of powerful beginnings that are right next to each other. So this is a very special time, and one that has a lot of magical potential and creative potential and healing potential in relationships. So I really encourage you to create some kind of little beautiful ritual on Saturday for yourselves that will give you the space to dream up your intentions for this month. What would you like to bring to fruition over the course of this month that relates to relationships, that relates to creativity, to dreams, to vision, to a higher way of being and relating in the world? That will be very, very powerful. So now we might step into each of the sun and rising signs and pull a card for each sign, just to give you a little bit of an indication about how this seeding might be playing out in your life and where your intentions can be most powerfully harnessed this month. For Aries Sun and Rising sign, this new moon is happening in your 12th house. And the 12th house rules endings and beginnings. It's about karmic processes of resolution and the birthing of new potentials. It represents the womb in astrology as well, the place where we were existing before we came into the world, which is Aries. So this is a time to think about what is needing to come to conclusion and fruition and completion before a new stage of life begins. What do we want to heal? How can we get out of our own way? The 12th house can rule self-undoing. So with Neptune there, Neptune can be, it has all these beautiful significations of higher consciousness and unconditional love and forgiveness and all these beautiful things, but it can also be associated with confusion, delusion, illusions, and the use of drugs or alcohol or other mind-altering substances as a kind of replacement for that spiritual connection. So in terms of self-undoing with Neptune there, we may want to be careful about this inclination or this kind of compulsion to escape from life. On the other hand, having Neptune and Venus in the 12th house is a magnificent sign and condition for creativity and for connecting with your closest loved ones at home in isolation, because the 12th house rules isolation. So nothing's jumping out. I'm going to pick the first card from the top of the deck, and it is the High Priestess, and that is absolutely beautiful, Aries. That is really saying to me that this is a time to go within. Of course, new moons are times of quiet introspection because there is no light shining on the moon. It's the darkness about to seed a new light. And so the High Priestess is very closely aligned with this phase of the moon, and she wants us to go deep into a very intuitive space to find that knowledge that exists deep within our own subconscious, within the collective consciousness. And it is full of power and magic. And whatever emerges, whatever surfaces through this process of introspection may have an element of intensity about it, but it is extremely beautiful and extremely productive at a spiritual level. So that is just gorgeous. I absolutely love that for you, Aries. Really travel in and create a space for yourself to be safe within a space of introspection. Don't fight it if you are feeling introverted, if you feel emotional. Remember that any intense emotions that do arise are actually a wonderful vehicle for intuition, for creating that Neptunian space of meditation, some kind of meditation that takes you in to your intuition and to your deeper feeling. So that's absolutely beautiful. And then Taurus, we have the new moon in your 11th house. And the 11th house, of course, rules friends, networks, groups, social dynamics, social networks, social media, your place in society. It also rules good fortune, and it is a beautiful place to be having a seeding energy, and may suggest that this is a really beautiful time to connect with people that you love, and that may be through social media because, of course, the 11th house rules social media. And with that Venusian, Neptunian energy, it can suggest that there will be beautiful connections, creative collaborations. Also the potential, of course, there's always the potential for the shadow and the light to emerge or to occur simultaneously, or one or the other being more dominant. There may be a feeling of confusion in friendships, and maybe of misunderstanding, and maybe feeling suspicious about things. But because this is a new moon, we're really being encouraged to think about the intention that we want to make in this cycle coming. So what is the intention that you want to set for your friendships, for your relationships, for how you are participating in your life in the context of the world and of society at large? And that will be an excellent way to channel any kind of energy that feels very emotionally charged. Piscean energy can be connected to feelings of victimhood and depression as well. And so creating some kind of ritual that honors you, that honors your beauty, that honors your dreams and the things, the goals that you cherish and hold dear, that are part of your visionary perspective of the potential in your life, will be a great way to banish some of that intense and difficult potential for emotional surfacing. And the card that popped out for you is also so perfect, especially in relation to that idea. It's the Six of Cups, and the Six of Cups deals with nostalgia and childhood, and Neptune rules nostalgia, it rules the past. So this time, the new moon, which asks us to go inwards and to really kind of swim in the quiet space of our imagination, our intuition, our emotions, asks us to think about the past and how our childhood experiences might be a template for what's occurring for us now, and what we've learned from those experiences, what we could bring into our current experiences that was productive and powerful from our childhood, but also how we might be able to perceive our experiences from a new angle. Remember that Gemini is very powerful now with Mars there, and with Mercury soon to move into Pisces. There is a really important need to review our own perspectives of what happened. And if we're telling ourselves a very negative story about what happens to us, our experiences, that may have shaped a more difficult experience of what's occurring for us now, there's a very strong need to look at the other side. What's another way of looking at this? Okay, sure, that happened and it was really destructive and debilitating potentially, but what has it also given me? How have I grown from this experience? And how can I continue to grow by gaining a deeper insight into that situation, which I'm capable of doing now only because I am here now at this level of my experience, my growth, and my maturity. So this is beautiful. The Six of Cups is also a very beautiful card that indicates the joy of childhood and a kind of a tranquil, beautiful ease that is symbolized by childhood. So there's nothing scary there. And if you are feeling overwhelmed, you might want to take yourself to a place where you can reconnect with that feeling of being at ease in your child self. Because of course the 11th house rules our connection to groups, but also rules the importance of being true to ourselves. So that's lovely, Taurus rising and Taurus suns. Okay, when we move Gemini to the Ascendant, we have the new moon in the 10th house. So Geminis, you are having something seated in the area of career, of how you show up in the world and how people see you, what you are able to manifest in the full light of the sun, so to speak. But this is a seeding point. So what are you wanting to plant in this area of career in terms of how you're seen? What creative ways can you imagine growing a new possibility at this point in time? And how can you be visionary about that? Neptune wants us to be visionary, and it wants us to evolve to a higher emotional capacity. So perhaps there are scenarios occurring in a work context or in a career context that require us to activate some of those higher emotional qualities of compassion for others and the ability to see more deeply into what's going on rather than reacting to perceived suspicions or feelings of being badly done by. That can definitely come up. And of course, Neptune does rule feelings of conspiracy and illusions that can be toxic. It can rule it can also indicate the potential for actual betrayals and kind of sabotage by others. But generally speaking, this is something that if we are able to activate those energies in our own lives, we're kind of using up the power of that planet in that way. So if we don't activate it ourselves, it can be activated from outside. So we want to think about where maybe we do have some illusions in relation to career that could be given more clarity through a more spiritual lens and through a creative lens, because Venus is there conjoining with Neptune. So thinking creatively, thinking compassionately, bringing a kind of beauty and a fairness into relationships will be very powerful in career. So thinking about all those things may well assist you in planting some really powerful seeds for this coming month. With Cancer on the Ascendant, we have this new moon in your 9th house, the house of God, the house of religion, spirituality, higher learning, the law, teachers and teaching. Ooh, and a card just jumped out, and it is the Ace of Swords. So that was very, very quick. So that suggests that there is this very strong intention around getting clarity and of beginning something that has a very strong alignment with the truth. So with this new moon in your house of God, in the house of spirituality and spiritual growth and teaching and learning, of justice, of course the Ace of Wands indicates a strong feeling of justice, but also of truth and clarity and integrity. So how can you possibly get into a closer alignment with your own integrity? What do you need to see from a visionary's perspective? Having Neptune in the ninth house is very, very powerful, very mystical, very spiritually enlarging. And yet this card is also saying, okay, bring that spiritual enlargement, that spiritual mysticism to an idea of integrity and truth and clarity. What do you want to get clear about? What do you want to bring a certain sharpness of awareness about in relation to your spiritual growth, in relation to your intellectual growth, in relation to higher thinking? Venus brings a sense of beauty to this endeavor and of creativity. So you may be able to find that sense of clarity really powerfully through some kind of creative dynamic, or through conversations with people who are able to go there with you, to have really deep and meaningful and rich and clear, truthful conversations about spiritual matters or about matters of higher thinking. So having really amazing conversations with the people that you can have really amazing conversations with around this new moon might be super, super powerful, and really activate some amazing opportunities in that area for you. So that's really beautiful for you, Cancer rising and Cancer suns. So when we bring Leo to the ascendant, we have the new moon in the 8th house. So Leo ascendants and Leo suns. This is a very powerful placement to have the new moon in the 8th house. Suggests that there is a seeding of some kind of spiritual awareness in relation to power, karmic entanglements from the past, and the way that you relate to and deal with other people's stuff. The 8th house rules other people's money, other people's karmic stuff, and our entanglements with it. So it can be a challenging house. It also rules death, it rules the intense bonds of sex, and it can deal with trauma as well. But this is a beautiful, beautiful new moon. So if any of those issues have been at play for you, this is bringing a really highly spiritual focus on those issues. The 8th house rules power, our personal power, and it's a place of transformation. So anything that occurs in the 8th house is in the process of transforming. So this new moon is bringing this opportunity to really create an incredibly beautiful opportunity for transformation and for a more powerful relationship with those karmic ties, and the ability to karmically resolve some issues that may have been holding us back or weighing us down. And interestingly for you, the card that flew out onto the floor is the Queen of Swords. And the Queen of Swords represents a character who has been through a lot. She has traveled through life's experiences and learned through those experiences. And although those experiences have been very difficult, the swords are a difficult suit. They're the suit of the mind. They are the suit of our thoughts and of our worries and anxieties and stresses, but also of clarity and integrity and intelligence and the truth. And this queen, she holds up the sword of truth and is able to gauge whether the information coming to her, the communications coming to her are true and good for her or not. And if they are good for her, she welcomes them. And if they feel they are out of alignment with integrity, she cuts them away. So this is a really strong message in terms of that karmic entanglement stuff, and in terms of the seeds that you could be planting here now to create more power in your relationship to transformation, in terms of your relationships with others that do feel karmic and that have felt potentially heavy, that there's an ability now to own your power by trusting your truth. And again, I would suggest really strongly to do some kind of meditation practice. Some journaling could be really good, because of course the swords relate to language and the mind and ideas. So and the new moon is a very introspective time. So it's a very powerful moment to do some journaling that could help you to get clear about what you're willing to accept and what is not appropriate any longer, what you can say no to, what you can actually banish from your experience, and where you might need to speak the truth. This is a really powerful part of this story as well. You might need to speak the truth about something, and we're seeing that a lot in the world right now, and I think we're being given a lot of inspiration and moral reinforcement to do the same, because it is really important and you have the power to do that. Okay, so let's put Virgo on the ascendant, and then for Virgo risings and Virgo suns, you have this new moon in your house of relationships. And that is a very interesting place, of course, always to have a new moon being seated. And it indicates that there is something new emerging in the context of your relationships, in the context of your love relationships, business partnerships, anybody that you have a strong and prominent relationship with will be represented by the 7th house. And so with Venus and Neptune there is an emphasis on the need to be unconditionally loving, to see the situation from the other's perspective, to be forgiving of transgressions, and to kind of level up in our interpersonal dynamics. It indicates that there is a desire to communicate with the other at a level that is really very spiritual, or at a higher level of thinking. And this will definitely improve your relationship dynamics if you can go there. You know, there is, we do need to be careful of, you know, getting stuck in righteous thinking in the context of relationships, you know, and that of course is very easy to do, where we have our story about what is happening in the context of a relationship, and we don't really want to budge from it because it's our story and we're very attached to it. So Neptune in the 7th house is really reminding us to be more spiritually evolved in how we relate to stories and how we relate to the dynamics of our relationships. And of course Venus wants harmony, and she wants diplomacy and love and connection. And it is a really good idea to plant some intentions about what you want to grow in your relationships over this period of time. Okay, we've got 2 cards jump out here. Very interesting. Okay, we have the 8 of Cups, which suggests that something needs to be walked away from in the context of relationships. Something that you have put a lot of energy into, that you've been building on and working up for a long period of time, that you've invested a lot of energy and emotion into. Something makes you realize that it's just not going to work this way, and that you have to literally walk away from it. And that in walking away from it, that may seem like a crazy thing to do, to give up on some way of being or some way of relating or some situation or context that involves relationships. It may seem counterintuitive. However, the magic of the 8 of Cups is that when we surrender, when we let go and we say, okay, this can't be the way that I want it to be, and it's not enough as it is, and it's probably never going to be what I want it to be, so I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to surrender, and I'm going to walk away. And the magic of this card is that very quickly things align in a new formation and take you where you want to be. So there is something that has to be relinquished. There's something that has to be released and surrendered and given up on to some degree. And you know, I have seen this play out in relationships a number of times where it seems like the end of a relationship, and you know, the person who pulls this card has to say, okay, that's it, I'm letting go, I'm moving away. And it doesn't always actually mean the end of a relationship, but it is a surrender that creates a reset. So whatever it is, however this is showing up for you, do not be afraid to surrender. With Neptune and Venus there's extra power of being able to surrender now. Spiritual support. It's like surrendering to whatever needs to be surrendered. It's like you're allowing yourself to be caught in the cosmic net. And in this new moon, it is a safe and internal place to be able to do that. So don't be afraid to surrender. It will take you much more quickly to your dreams, to your intentions. So plant intentions around what it is that you are most wanting to create here, and around what you might need to let go of. The second card that jumped out for you, Virgo rising, is the Three of Wands, which is also a really beautiful reminder, kind of following on from that, that there's some patience required. You are waiting for the ships to come in. You don't know the results of the actions and the intentions that you have planted to date. It's like you're waiting for the ships to come in. You've sent out the orders, you've paid for the goods, and you can see the ships on the horizon, but they're not here yet. So it is coming in, things are in progress, and there is a process underway. So patience and trust that it's going to unfold. Libra, Sun and Rising. You have this new moon happening in your 6th house. Woo. And, you know, the 6th house is another one of the tricky houses. It relates to health and work and day-to-day life, but it can sometimes be, you know, the experience of work and health that is difficult. So, you know, in traditional astrology, ancient astrology, it was associated with slavish work, servile work. Virgo serves. So we're thinking about how we serve in life, and we are thinking about how we can serve in a way that doesn't make us feel like a servant. And it can rule ill health, but it brings us to focus on healing. And of course, Virgo is on the axis with Pisces, where this new moon is occurring. So this new moon for you is really activating thoughts and intentions around the idea of health and work and your day-to-day life and routines. Okay, I keep shuffling and things keep jumping out. That's way too many. So we have the Page of Wands that has jumped out for you. And this is really suggesting a youthful emergence of a possibility seeding. Where there is perhaps some issues with health or with work, there's a new possibility emerging here that did not seem possible before. The Rider-Waite Page of Wands I love because it shows a young man in the desert holding his wand and staring at the miraculous sprouting of his wand with leaves. So it is literally the possibility for something to emerge in this space that was completely unexpected. It makes no sense. It's kind of miraculous. And of course, with the new moon in the 6th house, accompanied by Venus and Neptune, there is most definitely the power for this kind of magic to occur. So you want to be setting intentions around how you can improve your health, your well-being, and your relationship to your work by making some changes in your day-to-day life that are beautiful, that allow you more space to meditate or to do things that take you into a meditative space. Walking every day, for example. Wands are related to creativity and to passion and to the kind of dynamic, spontaneous emergence of ideas. And the Page is a really young energy. So it suggests, yeah, the emergence of something new in this area. You want to be creating practices and routines are 6th house, and patterns of behavior that you feel kind of passionate and inspired by. If you're wanting to improve your health and your diet, you know, go and look for some really delicious recipes that are really good for whatever it is that you are trying to address in your physical health. We have access to so many incredible resources online in relation to health, or how you can make your day-to-day life more inspiring. You know, what little things can you do to activate this area of your life and make you feel more inspired, more passionate, and more in a beginner's mind. The Page is a beginner's mind. So don't worry about getting things wrong. Don't worry that things maybe look a little bit shaky right now. That's okay. We need things to be shaky in order to make them more amazing, because if things are just okay, we just go along with them. Who's going to change anything if things are okay? Things need to get rocky. Things need to get challenging before we go, okay, this is not good enough and I want better than this. And that forces us to make changes, which makes life so much better. so much better than it was before. So don't be afraid. Use this beautiful beginner's mind, passionate energy to create some beautiful new routines in your life. So that's extremely beautiful, Libra. Let's put Scorpio on the ascendant, Scorpio suns and rising. You have this new moon occurring in your 5th house. How divine. This suggests that you are going to be having quite a delicious, beautiful time of it, basically. When you have this activated 5th house, 5th house is the house of good fortune, the kind of good luck that comes to you without having to do anything to earn it. And of course, the new moon is the time of retreat. So this suggests that you will find great pleasure at home, doing creative things, you know, connecting with your lover. Venus is there, and the 5th house also rules, you know, the joys of sex. So perhaps this could be an immensely, and also of romance, of course. So this could be a really beautiful romantic time for you. It can also indicate like incredible pleasure and, you know, kind of epiphanies that come through meditation. So I highly recommend meditative practices for you. It could be just wild. And romance and creativity are going to be really well starred for you as well in the 5th house. And you could need this, Scorpio risings and Scorpio suns, because especially Scorpio risings, I'll be very interested to hear Scorpio suns if this has been a tough and challenging time for you. But I know it has been for Scorpio rising. So this is a welcome bit of magic and relief for you to have this new moon in the 5th house. And it's asking you, where do you want more pleasure in your life? Where do you want to be more creative, more romantic? What seeds can you plant now that are going to allow that to be more powerfully activated moving forward? Let's have a look at this card that jumped out. Ooh, we have another page, and it's the Page of Cups. How perfect for this particular placement. So again, it's beginner's mind energy. It's this really youthful, poetic messenger. The page is the messenger, so you may receive some news that relates to love and relationships and creativity. The cups rule all of those things. And in the 5th house, this is saying, okay, maybe you're not used to this kind of pleasure. Maybe you don't meditate. Maybe that's something that feels quite anathema to you. This is a beautiful time to try. You know, search on YouTube for creative meditations or guided meditations. Begin as a beginner and don't expect too much of yourself. Maybe you want to write poetry. Maybe you want to bring some romance to somebody else. Maybe somebody is going to bring some romance to you. Whatever it is, bringing a sense of childlike innocence and play will be very powerful. The 5th house also rules children, so you may also actually experience some enormous pleasure and joy with children. But regardless, you want to bring a sense of childlike energy to whatever you're doing. Don't expect too much. Don't put too much pressure on things. Think about how you could reactivate that child part of yourself that knew joy and knew how to access joy so well. You know, we do lose that a lot as we get older. And with Neptune accompanying the new moon in the 5th house, this is saying look to the past and remember your inner child. You know, have some joy and some magic and bring some of that joy and magic to others and indulge in it yourself. It's absolutely lovely, and it could bring some real you know, healing and calm and beauty to some of the turmoil that you have been experiencing in recent times. All right, let's put Sagittarius on the ascendant, and we have this new moon in the 4th house. So Sagittarian suns and risings, this new moon is really activating something in the context of family or home or both. You may be thinking about how you want to move forward in the context of your family relationships or in the context of your dream home. What is your vision for your home and for your home life? For your the most private place that you commune with yourself and with your dearest and most intimate loved ones. The cards are jumping out today. We have the 5 of Swords here. And the Five of Swords suggest that there could be, there could be some conflict in the context of family or home dynamics. And the message of the Five of Swords is a really interesting one, and it really does align with the nodal axis at the moment, which has Sagittarius on the south node, and that Sagittarian tendency to believe that it is right and to be righteous and a little bit domineering in terms of its views. And at the moment with the nodal axis, that is not going to do us well. We are going to end up discovering that we're wrong more times than we are right when we are really righteous about our views. The Five of Swords says there may be a dynamic of conflict, there may have been, there may be now a dynamic of conflict where you do have the upper hand. You can win. That's the thing about Sagittarius. It does have the upper hand. It does know a lot. And yet if it forces its righteous kind of opinions onto a situation, then it is going to backfire, because the Five of Swords shows that you can win in a situation of conflict now. However, it will backfire on you in the long run. The people who end up losing initially will end up winning in the long run. So where there's a tendency to want to engage or enter into conflict, to get one over on another, or to, you know, enforce your righteous position, or to make a point in a way that could be conflictual, avoid it. Do avoid it, because it will not work out well for you in the long run. You may feel, you know, puffed up initially because you will win at the outset. You will definitely win and they'll walk away with their tails between their legs. However, in the long run, you will most definitely be worse off than they will. So this is something to really keep in mind. Of course, this may be happening to you in the opposite way. You may be experiencing somebody else playing this out with you in the context of family or home environment. And that's the same thing to keep in mind, that if somebody is trying to, you know, get involved in some kind of power play with you, that is, they're wanting to win and they're wanting to bring you down in some way and teach you a lesson and show you that they're right, let them, and go into that higher Neptunian mind. Forgive them, because, you know, whenever we're activating this kind of energy, it really comes from a lack of personal security. You know, we are doubting ourselves. It's our low self-esteem at some level, and that may be unconscious as well, because, you know, Sagittarians, you know, you tend to be quite confident about what you know, because you do know a lot. You know, you are very powerful. You're quite wise in many ways, and yet that can push over a little bit too far, and that's what we need to be mindful of now. And so it can be hard to see sometimes that there's a real sense of self-doubt that might be shielded by that more aggressive impulse to be proven right. And so whichever way it's playing out for you, really activate that Neptunian sense of unconditional love, of forgiveness of yourself and others. Don't engage in these kinds of conflicts. If somebody's trying to have a conflict with you, just in your heart, just go, wow, you really feel compelled to do this, and so you mustn't be feeling that great about yourself. Capricorn Sun and Rising, you have this new moon taking place in your third house of communication, of neighbours, of short distance travel, the kind of the immediate surrounds of your daily life. So the kinds of places and areas that you frequent on a daily basis. It also relates to siblings and colleagues, the kinds of people that you're engaging with on a day-to-day basis. And so this new moon suggests that there's a possibility to begin some new way of communicating with the people who are close to you in your daily life, or of communicating ideas in a way that has a kind of a visionary quality about them. There's some kind of illumination occurring, a seeding that's occurring in terms of being able to communicate in a way that is beautiful and poetic and full of love and compassion and high ideals. So this is really going to be very interesting energy. Okay, the card that has jumped out here is the Pope, which is the Hierophant in the standard deck. So the Hierophant or the Pope represents kind of the container that is tradition. So it's seeking out practices that can help to hold our energies in a way that's tried and true and tested. So obviously it represents religion or old, ancient, traditional practices like meditation, for example, or philosophies that are well known and practiced, spiritual traditions, or any kind of routine that has a tradition around it that can help to hold your intentions and allow you to channel your visionary thinking or your creativity or your communication in a way that is, it's kind of guided. You're not going out completely on a limb. You can kind of follow a pattern that's been tried and tested that has a spiritual quality about it, a sense of integrity and an evolved sense of morality about it, and a sense of grace and graciousness, but within structures that exist and that have been proven to be effective. I might pull one more actually for you. So two more cards have jumped out, and they are the Knight of Cups and the Nine of Swords. So you may have been experiencing some worries that relate to communication, possibly in relation to siblings or in relation to colleagues, or just in relation to communication in general, how you communicate, how you're being seen and understood. That's the Nine of Swords is anxiety and the worries that keep you up at night, the difficulty in communicating things. So therefore you may want to seek out some practices, traditions that are really good containers for communicating in a powerful way, in a visionary way, in a creative and emotional way, because Venus is there in your house of communication, really amplifying the quality of emotion in your communication. And of course, Neptune can relate to illusions and delusions and confusion. So there may be a feeling of some confusion in communication, how you communicate things, what do you really want to say, the difficulty of being able to say what you mean. So seeking out practices and spiritual traditions that can help you harness that way of thinking. Listening to podcasts that are speaking from a particular kind of spiritual or traditional viewpoint. I love to listen to This Jungian Life. I don't know if any of you have listened to that podcast. It's absolutely fantastic, but it really does help to channel and harness your thinking within a particular paradigm that is clearly articulated, and that can really help when things feel confusing. With the Knight of Cups here, this is saying definitely pursue things like poetry and writing. The third house is the house of communication, and it does rule writing. So journaling could be extremely powerful right now, and that's a tradition, a long-standing tradition that has been immensely successful for thousands, if not millions of people, to help them process and articulate and make sense of their thoughts. So that is something that could be very, very powerful this weekend. The Knight of Cups is romantic, but he's a poet. He's looking at the world romantically. Of course, having these the emotional qualities of Neptune and Venus alongside the moon, which is introverted and quiet, is definitely amplified when you are a Capricorn, because it is difficult to communicate emotions when you're a Capricorn. You want to be much more practical. So it also really helps to create some kind of project for yourself, journaling project, a writing project, some kind of creative project that you can, again, harness your attention through in order to make sense of the underlying emotional experiences that are coming to the fore, and that may come out as like fractious Martian energy. And that feel frustrating because you want to be experiencing joy and you don't know why you're feeling this kind of level of frustration. So definitely use that poetic energy of the Knight of Cups to explore what you want to communicate in a more visionary way and in a more beautiful way that really nourishes love and connection and beauty. All right, Aquarius, Sun and Rising, you have this new moon occurring in your second house of resources and self-worth, money and income. So this is an interesting time for you to be thinking about what kind of seeds you want to plant in terms of your resources. And of course, resources can relate to your material resources, the things that you have at your disposal in your day-to-day life that you use to make your life better. They can also be things like talents and skills, money, of course. In what ways can you potentially grow something in this area of your life? It could be very powerful because Venus is there, and Venus rules resources. She rules money and self-worth. So this is a really great time to focus your visionary energy on what it is that you're wanting to grow in this period in terms of those things. And it definitely relates to our sense of self-worth. So what kinds of developments are possible in this unfolding month that could be germinated with this kind of visionary, creative, beautiful thinking that relates to relationships as well. The second house also relates to the people who are helping us to achieve our goals. They're like resources to us, the people that really aid us. With Mars in your fifth house, there's a suggestion that really pursuing the things that you love, that bring you pleasure, that feel like play, connecting with children, with romance, is really going to help to accentuate this experience of growing self-worth, which you are seeding in this cycle. So definitely indulge in the things that you love and in creative projects, in connecting with children, in remembering who you are as your inner child, that sense of, really beautiful power that we had when we were being true to ourselves as children. That is really going to help to anchor in that sense of self-worth, which is going to expand the potential for your resources to grow and nourish you over this period of time. Aquarius, I had a glitch and I forgot to pull you a card, but this is the card that's come out now. And the King of Cups refers to the power to be in control of your emotions in a way which is still flexible. It shows that there's a certain level of mastery about being able to deal with emotions. And perhaps they're the emotions of your children, perhaps they're being reflected for you in your children. It also shows the power of creativity, of being able to channel experiences of feeling and emotion in a poetic and creative way. There's a maturity in dealing with relationships. Basically, it's a beautiful card that shows a real centeredness in terms of the ability to wield feeling and to understand the wisdom in feeling experiences. So that's very beautiful for you as well, I think, in terms of the issues that are being activated with this new moon and with Mars in your fifth house as well. So that's lovely. Pisces Sun and Rising, you obviously have this new moon occurring in your first house if you're a Pisces rising, and that is very, very powerful because it suggests that there is this kind of new seeding in the realm of identity and sense of self, and of how you appear in the world, how you are changing and transforming and tipping from one way of being into the next. This unfolding evolution of the self. And what that requires right now is some visionary thinking, a kind of retreat into one's inner self, one's dreamy relationship to the inner child and to the kind of the cosmic mystic self, and connecting again to what we love. That's going to be very, very powerful in terms of this kind of alchemy that's taking place in this new moon energy, with so much Neptune and Venus energy kind of amplifying this seeding point. You have Mars in the fourth house of family. So there's this, interesting dynamic that's taking place at the moment between your relationship to yourself and your relationship to family, how you communicate in family, what you desire, what you want to make happen, what is motivating you to take action in the context of family, and how that plays out in your relationship to yourself, and what your capacity is in the world, and how you might be able to bring a sense of healing and forgiveness and greater understanding and compassion in those relationships to yourself and to those in your family, in your home. So that's really beautiful. Let's pull a little card for you, Pisces, because this is your moon. You're the last sign of the zodiac. It's taken all the way to get through, but this could be a very, very special time for you. So make sure that you do create some kind of little ritual for yourself that allows you to anchor into this dreamy, visionary space, thinking about what it is that you most want to manifest for yourself at a visionary level. And the card that's just popped out for you is the Seven of Wands. And the Seven of Wands can feel a little bit like this year has felt so far. This kind of a little bit on the back foot, you know, trying to catch up with so much stuff going on, feeling at times, you know, Neptune can make us feel like, and Pisces as well, we can feel like a victim. We can feel like the world's against us. We can feel like we're having to defend ourselves. In the Rider-Waite deck, this card shows somebody who is literally on the back foot, who feels they have to defend themselves, but they actually have they're on higher ground, and so they are in a better position than they think they are. So this is something to keep in mind. If there are feelings that are dragging you towards beliefs that perhaps that you are not going to be able to achieve what you want to achieve, and that you're struggling against forces that are beyond your control, that is not actually true. That is a very Neptunian deception or delusion. You're actually in a very good position right now, and you have the upper hand, and so there is an enormous potential to plant some seeds now that are going to help you to really kind of maximize and harness your abilities towards a goal that you are setting for yourself now. So have compassion for yourself, be patient. If you get dragged into sort of victim-y thinking, or feeling like the world is against you, or that you have to be suspicious about things, don't trust that. Trust the fact that you are actually doing very, very well. Take some time to yourself, retreat, go inwards, do that visionary stuff, be creative, indulge in the things that you love and that you find beautiful, and they will really nourish you right now. There's so much gorgeous energy around this new moon that can really help you to anchor into yourself in a very beautiful way. So Pisces, I hope this is a magical new moon for you, and that it begins a cycle that feels absolutely inspiring and that can help you heal, and that it is the marking of a new creative turning point in your life. It's very beautiful. So my darling friends, I hope that there is lots of magic in this new moon for you, and that the next couple of weeks are extremely interesting, that there's a feeling of a little bit of rest and recuperation and dreaming that's possible for all of you. And I am sending so much love to you all, and thank you so much for being here. It's just such an honour to be with you in discussing the stories of the skies at the moment, and I hope they are treating you well, whatever's happening for you. Much love, and see you next week for the equinox.